Stranger things are so rare. In movies you find plenty, but in reality, you find nothing because they are all fiction, just lies to their viewers, hiding the truth. But we are back with the most strange, legendary, and historical circus freaks who are real and were once the kings of their time and stage. These are not simple or normal. They are stranger than you think. Once you watch them, tell me how you feel. So, let's start our topic with number 15, Lucia Zarate. A miniature chair was set for her on stage, though she barely needed it. Measuring only about 50 centimeters, she could sit on a single hand and still command the audience's gaze. Vera Cruz, 1864. She arrived at the U.S. sideshow circuit as if carried on a whisper, paired with another tiny performer, Francis General Mite Flynn. Her gestures were precise, her movements deliberate, as she navigated props scaled down to doll dimensions. Performers whispered about her uncanny balance on miniature platforms, often tipping forward without a stumble between acts. She would examine coins and objects tossed at her with a curious tilt of the head. Even her voice carried a soft authority. With clear English and Spanish tones, snowstorms interrupted one tour, leaving her stranded on a mountain train route where exposure ended her journey abruptly. Her skeletal frame was studied by anatomists for its extreme proportions, revealing details about growth limitation patterns unseen before small hands, long, narrow feet, and a proportionally large head created illusions that challenged both perception and measurement. Number 14, Radhika and Dudika Nayak, Orissa twins. A rumor spread in London. Two girls moving as one had arrived from India, linked at the torso. Observers strained to understand their synchronization, a chest-to-navel connection that seemed to dictate every coordinated step. Born in Odisha in 1888, their early tours included intricately patterned costumes, concealing seam lines while emphasizing mirrored gestures. The twins spoke several languages, reciting counting routines or simple songs in rhythm, turning an exhibition into choreography. Stage props were arranged for optical illusions, mirrors angled to multiply movement, curtains drawn to highlight synchronized bowing. In Paris, surgical curiosity drew medical observers, though the operation fatally claimed one twin. Even in grief, the surviving twin continued performances briefly, unaware of the loss. During transit, porters joked about their small shared trunks, which contained identical shoes, hats, and tiny garments. Number 13, Ruth Davis, Penguin Girl. A narrow spotlight traced her steps as she waddled across the wooden stage, her legs curving outward at strange angles. Born in 1879 in New England, her skeletal deformities forced an unusual gait, earning her the nickname Penguin Girl. Costume designers experimented with elongated tails and flared hems to exaggerate her movement and create a spectacle of symmetry. In between performances, she often perched on tall stools, balancing precariously, a habit that amused handlers more than the audience. Some claimed she could hop small distances, producing a jerky rhythm that mimicked natural avian motions. Stage props were adjusted, tilted platforms, low railings, and narrow ramps to allow for her distinctive motion. Curiosity often centered on how she maintained stability while executing gestures, from hand claps to intricate head tilts. Audiences marveled not just at the shape of her legs, but the precision of each step. Number 12. Melvin Burkhart, Anatomical Wonder. A contortionist's nightmare or delight, Melvin's joints bent beyond expectation. Born in Ohio in 1890, his body seemed to defy conventional structure. On stage, he would fold, twist, and squeeze himself into tiny crates meant for props, emerging with the same energy and poise. Performers whispered about his ability to manipulate his shoulders and knees into angles that seemed anatomically impossible. Between routines, he practiced handstands and backbends on narrow benches, testing limits of balance and flexibility. His costume often included tight stripes, emphasizing elongation, while small props like hoops and chairs accentuated the optical distortion of his limbs. Audience members speculated how he could fit entirely inside a single wooden box, or roll his body across the stage in ways that made him resemble a living puzzle. Even under bright lights, shadows would exaggerate the odd length of his arms and the twisting of his torso. The next in the list is number 11, Otis Jordan, Frog Boy. He crouched low on a narrow wooden beam, knees bent so sharply they almost kissed his chest, before springing forward in a blur. Kentucky, 1885. Though no one would have guessed from his lithe, elongated limbs, his nickname came not from whimsy, but from the mechanical precision of his jumps, which mimicked a frog's leap across uneven terrain. Stage designers built miniature staircases and angled platforms, forcing each landing to showcase his unusual joint angles. Off-stage, he practiced vaults over crates and tiny tables, creating improvisational sequences that often changed mid-performance. Observers whispered about the subtle twists of his hips and knees, how his shadow seemed to multiply on the floorboards under spotlights. Even simple gestures, like picking up a small prop, became an exhibition of controlled elasticity. Number 10. Charlotte Linda Vogel, Elephant Skin Girl. Curtains parted to reveal a ripple of thick, textured skin, catching the gaslights in odd reflections. Germany, 1892. Though the stage world focused less on origins than on the visual effect she produced. Her epidermolytic hyperkeratosis gave every movement a tactile drama, enhanced by carefully draped fabrics that suggested motion across a sculpted surface. Handlers placed polished metal bars and velvet ropes near her, highlighting the contrast between smooth props and her rugged texture. In rehearsals, she would trace patterns on her arms with fingertips, studying how the light exaggerated ridges and folds. Costume designers experimented with angles and layers, creating an interplay of shadows that danced across her raised skin. Every bow, hand gesture, or tilt transformed her into a living topography, with spectators' attention drawn to the interaction between body, material, and illumination rather than any single feature. Number 9. Frances O'Connor. Fingers were absent, but toes performed feats that drew gasps from anyone watching. Tennessee, 1880, was just a label. The stage mattered more than origin. A narrow rope suspended above miniature chairs became her playground. She grasped, swung, and even stacked small objects while upside-down curtains shifted with her, brushing just enough to suggest she might topple. Yet she never did. Behind the scenes, she curled into tiny boxes designed to appear impossible for any human, testing balance and limb coordination simultaneously. Props, tiny candlesticks, small desks, were arranged to force precise motion, making even mundane actions seem extraordinary. Occasionally, she would roll across the stage floor in a spiral, toes gripping the polished wood, leaving spectators questioning physics. Spotlights accentuated angles and shadows that stretched her form, turning simple movements into visual puzzles. Are you ready to meet with number 8, Jack Earl? The stage seemed too narrow until he bent in impossible angles, shoulders scraping the top of the doorway. Missouri, 1906, marked the start of limbs that would dwarf nearly everything around them. Tiny chairs lined the stage, thrown into stark contrast with his elongated frame, while a low platform forced exaggerated steps that made him glide almost unrealistically. A backstage corridor became a maze of narrow turns and obstacles, yet he moved with measured precision. Sliding past crates and props that would have tripped any ordinary performer, photographers often crouched low to capture the effect. One man dwarfed by objects meant for others, a human tower bending through space. Mid-performance, he would pause to adjust a prop or tilt a curtain, creating an unexpected visual tension as light and shadow played across arms and legs. Number 7. Martin Emmerling, Martin Lorello. Neighbors whispered about the man whose head could pivot unnaturally, as if watching two directions at once. Born in 1890 in Germany, Martin Lorello developed an ability to rotate his neck nearly 180 degrees, a feat that fascinated both doctors and curiosity seekers. During travel between towns, he would peer around corners without turning his shoulders, drawing startled glances from passers-by. In lodgings, mirrors became instruments of study. He practiced subtle tilts, adjusting collars and hats to exaggerate twists. Reports mention him leaning into doorways, lips brushing the frame while eyes darted backward, a silent choreography of perception. Clothing with tight necklines and angled seams enhanced visual illusions, creating odd intersections between anatomy and fabric. Occasional photographs captured him leaning over railings or peering from behind tables, producing shapes that seemed physically impossible. Number 6. Willie Eco Muse. The sunlight caught his pale skin first, revealing textures and veins invisible under artificial lighting. Born in 1902 in Virginia, Willie, an albino, shared exhibitions with his twin brother but moved in subtly distinct rhythms. During travel, he would balance precariously on narrow planks outside tents, testing coordination before any audience appeared. Clothing folds and small props were adjusted to emphasize or conceal different angles of his body, sometimes creating the illusion of multiple shadows moving independently. Fellow performers noted how he could mimic animals, crouching or stretching in ways that amplified proportion contrasts between himself and his brother. A minor cough or shift in posture could disrupt symmetry, forcing instant micro-adjustments. Observers occasionally glimpsed him reading tiny print upside down, toes curling around objects for stability. Number 5. Elvira and Jenny Lee Snow. Whispers in traveling towns spoke of two girls whose heads seemed unusually small, yet their movements were strangely synchronized. Born in the 1890s in the U.S., the Snow sisters displayed microcephaly, drawing both fascination and disbelief. While passing through narrow alleys backstage, they often mirrored each other unconsciously, tilting heads or clasping hands in unison. Clothing was carefully chosen. High collars and puffed sleeves emphasized tiny heads while disguising other asymmetries. On occasion, they would explore props meant for larger performers, squeezing into chairs or wrapping around small rails, creating visual oddities without any deliberate choreography. Spectators noted subtle differences in gait and posture despite surface similarities. Between exhibitions, they practiced small gestures, hand taps, synchronized glances, almost like silent communication, unnoticed by casual observers. Even lighting and shadows interacted strangely with their heads, stretching or compressing contours to produce shifting perceptions. Let's move on. Number 4. Josephine Joseph. A murmur ran through the crowd when a performer appeared with ambiguous features, neither fully masculine nor feminine in presentation. Born in 883 in Germany, Josephine Joseph was intersex, her body and appearance challenging conventional notions of gender. During travel, she experimented with clothing and posture, alternating subtle cues to emphasize one aspect of her form or another. Small gestures, hand on hip, shoulder tilt, could radically shift perception, creating an almost theatrical ambiguity before even reaching the stage. Props were secondary. A chair, a small box, or a tabletop simply framed the human figure as the focus of curiosity. Observers sometimes mistook minor tilts or movement for dramatic tricks, while Josephine's own coordination emphasized precision and balance. Mirrors in lodgings became tools of experimentation, testing how angles altered the impression of symmetry. Every bow, lean, or glance played with expectation, producing a dynamic tension between appearance, posture, and perception that could shift subtly from moment to moment. Number 3. Betty Lou Williams, Stork Woman. Conversations backstage often paused when she entered, limbs appearing too long for the furniture around her. Born in 1920 in the US, her Marfan syndrome gave her striking height and slenderness, but her presence was more than proportion. It was rhythm walking down narrow corridors. She sometimes had to angle her shoulders to avoid door frames, yet she carried herself with an almost mechanical precision. Costume folds were manipulated to either exaggerate or soften angles, depending on the effect desired. Observers noted the way her hands moved almost independently, fingers extended like delicate instruments over props or rails. Mirrors captured elongated reflections that seemed to distort even further, creating a dissonance between reality and perception. Small gestures, tipping a hat, adjusting a sleeve, produced an unusual visual effect, highlighting the extraordinary interplay of height, limb length, and shadow. Number 2. Nabor Netzahualt, Feliz. Clay dust clung to his hands long after rehearsal, tiny flecks catching the dim lantern light. Born in Mexico in 1895, Nabor's craft extended beyond sideshow performance. He sculpted intricate figures that exaggerated or complemented his own body's oddities. Walking through small-town streets between exhibitions, he carried miniature statues that drew curious glances, fingers moving with meticulous care. Costume choices highlighted his torso, while flexible materials allowed him to bend and twist subtly, integrating sculpted forms with human form. Occasionally, a dropped tool or misaligned miniature forced improvisation, producing gestures that appeared choreographed but were spontaneous. Observers remarked on the way light played across both clay and skin, accentuating unusual textures and angles. Even a simple seated pose could produce optical illusions, creating the impression that limbs or surfaces extended unnaturally. Number 1. Francis Doran. A sudden glint reflected off a polished steel blade, drawing the eyes of anyone nearby before they realized what they were witnessing. Francis Doran, born in Ireland in 1877, had developed the rare skill of swallowing swords with extraordinary precision. Long before the audience assembled, he practiced in narrow hallways and dimly lit rooms, carefully adjusting posture, angle, and timing to make each swallow appear effortless. Blades of varying lengths were tested methodically, and even small gestures, tilting the head, flexing the shoulders, aligning the spine, altered perception in subtle but striking ways. Shadows cast by lanterns or stage lighting exaggerated the length and danger of the blades, producing an almost surreal impression. Off stage, he handled props with the same meticulous care, experimenting with miniature utensils or skewers to refine technique. Observers sometimes noted that a casual lean, a slight hand movement, or an adjusted collar could transform a simple demonstration into a startling visual illusion. Bodies bent, stretched, and twisted beyond expectation. Tiny figures balanced impossibly, giants loomed over furniture, and twins moved in uncanny unison. Every gesture, every posture, every odd movement revealed the limits and surprises of the human form, creating spectacles that challenged perception, fascination, and disbelief in ways no ordinary story could ever capture. Dive into the uncanny and the extraordinary. Subscribe for stories of limbs, proportions, and human oddities that defy belief. Smash that like button if the unusual fascinates you, and share with those who thrive on the strange. Every click reveals another marvel you won't see anywhere else. Thanks for watching.